College Independent School District to hold a public hearing, public comment on Tuesday, June 1st at 6:30 in the video conferencing or telephone call. At this meeting, the board may deliberate or act on any of the subjects listed on the following agenda. The president may change the order for the items listed below the convenience of the board. In accordance with Governor Abbott's declaration of the COVID-19 public health threat and action to temporarily suspend certain provisions of the Texas Open Meeting Act, a quorum of the district's Board of Trustees will hold its regular board meeting by video conferencing or teleconference. The public will have the option to attend and participate in the meeting remotely by video conference or by telephone conference. Members of the public may access this meeting. They should have already done by now. Okay, at this point, Dr. Pettis?
Yes. We are going to start with the public hearing, the American Rescue Plan, uses of funds and plan requirements. And Ms. Garcia is going to be presenting.
Sure. No.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. Tonight we're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, ESSER 3. We're going to discuss the use of funds as well as the plan requirements, and this is the second presentation that we make to the board, and we're here to provide an update as well as share new information. The purpose of this program, funding source, is to provide school districts funding to be able to healthily, safely reopen schools. So that is the intent, to be able to maintain a safe operation as well as address any of the impacts and challenges that we have faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. School districts are to use these funds to be able to respond to the pandemic and address learning loss as a result of COVID-19. There's a requirement that 20% of the funding that is allocated to school district be at a minimum allocated to address the learning loss. Mission CISD was allocated a total amount of $68,846,682. This funding, the district has not yet received it. We still have to go through the stakeholder engagement, which we're currently in that phase, as well as develop the two plans that are required, and then submit an application. And once we submit the application, we will be able to access the initial allocation, which is the 2/3 amount. That is $45,897,788. The remaining allocation, TA will provide us access to that once the federal government has approved the TEA state plan. And that 1/3 allocation is a balance of $22,948,894. So that is the funding that we're having to work with at this time to be able to develop the two plans that are required. The timeframe of the grant is they are allowing us till September 30th, 2024 to expend all the funds. They do recommend that TA is recommending that districts reimburse themselves for prior expenditures. So this grant does allow for pre-award costs. What that means is going back to the start of the pandemic on March 13, 2020, the district went through some expenditures as well as loss of revenue streams. TA is recommending that one of the uses for this funding is to reimburse ourselves for those expenses that were made. And they are recommending that because that money has already been paid out of local funds, and we would be reimbursing back to the district's general fund, and that would help us strengthen our fund balance. And it's very important have a strong fund balance because you never know when there's gonna be another emergency. You know, I never thought that we would ever experience a government shutdown where, you know, we would have a delay in seeing some of our federal funding, but that exactly did happen not too long ago. So it's very important that we preserve our fund balance in a good and healthy balance. Some of the costs that we have experienced as a result of the pandemic have been in the area of technology. Of course, the district has moved to a true one-to-one district, providing Chromebooks, hotspots, connectivity resources, as well as the mobile kits, the Wi-Fi, and the parking lot internet access, as well as the bus Wi-Fi access to our community, because, you know, we had to change the way we deliver our instruction. So we've spent about $3.8 million in the way of technology. We've also had to increase expenditures in personal protective equipment, you know, gloves and gowns and face shields and masks and so forth. $278,000 is what we have spent. Other protective measures, such as the screens for the student desks, the teacher's desks, and so forth, that type of protective equipment, $383,476. We've also had to purchase additional sanitation equipment. We've purchased some additional e-mist machines, as well as a very large number of the chemicals that are used for that at a rate that we had not been using in years past. We are e-misting on a daily basis. Also, we have had some overtime and supplemental pay because people have been given hazard pay when they're out there in the front lines, for example, in the vaccines. In addition, when we asked our teachers in the beginning of the pandemic to come in and teach in person in our instructional aids, they were provided a stipend because they were facing students and they were in a live classroom versus the virtual learning. We also have purchased some touchless water fountains, which we will be installing very soon across the district at a cost of over $246,000. Because the water fountains are not accessible, we're having to buy bottled water for the students and the staff, and that's another expense, almost $25,000. In total, this is not an all-inclusive list. We are still looking at our records and identifying these costs, but this total is $6,023,343.77. In addition to that, there's been some revenues that we have not been able to achieve. In the past, the economy was doing well in terms of interest income. We were making a very healthy return on our investments. However, because of the pandemic, you know, it did affect the economy. So we saw a decrease in interest income of $1.18 million. In addition to that, our athletic venues were very limited, and we decided not to charge attendees for the gate receipts. So that was another $192,000 loss in revenue. In terms of ADA, we have seen a decrease in enrollment, which translates to average daily attendance, and that figure is 4.1 million. So if you total that out, it's almost 5.5 million in loss in revenue. And again, this is not all inclusive. In addition to that, the district continued to employ 100% of their staff that was able to work. We did go through a time frame where the county had shut down, and we actually sent all of our staff home. Those that were able to work from home were given work from home duties, but obviously there's a group of employees that cannot perform their daily functions from home. You know, other entities, while they might have chosen to furlough staff, the district decided to keep every single employee employed, receiving their full paycheck. So just to give you an idea, in, for example, one area that we had to get creative because we still have the staff on board, and we had to create other duties for them to perform once we were able to reopen and come back. Would have been like, for example, transportation, where we weren't transporting as many kids, we weren't doing the field trips or the extracurriculars. So we had to find work for them on site. So a lot of them were helping operations department, maintenance, and so forth. In food service, there was a time frame where we were not, the district was not preparing the meals as well. We were with the Baylor program, getting the meals delivered to the home. So we continue to keep the staff employed. So to give you an idea, just for those two departments alone, payroll costs from the beginning of the year till now are 4.7,094,000. In addition to reimbursing the district, other allowable uses include, of course, we are able to continue to support activities that are supported by the Elementary Secondary Education Act. So those expenses are eligible. IDEA, Individuals with Disability Act, Adult Education and Family Literacy Act programs, as well as the Carl Perkins Career and Technology Education Act. So anything under those programs, we can use this funding to pay for. We are also able to use the funds to develop and implement strategies for how to reopen and operate our schools in a safe and secure manner, and also maintain the mental health of our students and our staff. We can use the funding to coordinate with other agencies, like for example, our local health department, which we have been for the vaccination clinics, as well as testing and so forth, to prepare and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have really great partnerships, not only with our local government partners, our neighboring cities, but also some of the medical community that has stepped up and provided that support. Training and professional development on sanitizing and minimizing the spread of the infection, that is another eligible expense. We can also purchase supplies, continue to purchase supplies to clean our facilities, and then also improve our facilities to reduce the transmission and exposure of these environmental health hazards. We can focus on indoor air quality, and we certainly have been doing some measures to address that, and we will continue, as you will hear tonight on another presentation. Additional items that we can look at is we have to make sure that we meet the needs of our special populations, which is our children that are from low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, homeless students, and children that are in the foster system. We can also implement procedures to be prepared to respond, and also the costs associated with implementing these procedures. We can plan for long-term closures if, for example, there happens to be, heaven forbid, another outbreak and we have to shut down schools. So anything from providing meals to the eligible students, providing additional technology so that they can continue with their online learning. And of course, expenses that we have already incurred in this particular category, such as when we had to make the instructional packets and so forth. Educational technology is another area that we can use these funds for. And this would be for hardware, software connectivity, as well as helping students with special needs with assistive technology and adaptive equipment. We can provide mental health services and support, as well as summer learning and extended day programs, after school learning, and so forth. And then of course, making sure that we allocate no less than 20% to address the learning loss. And then any other activities needed to maintain the operation of the district, which would include payroll costs. Now we have to develop two plans, and one is the spending plan. The plan has to be easily understandable, that the general public can read it, and we need to translate it, make sure it's available in English and Spanish because of our community needs. we have to post it within 30 days from the notice of grant award. The plan may be amended, and we do have to review our plan as things change. There's a 6-month review process. Another plan that is required is a return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. And this one addresses the safety component and how we're gonna carry on having students and staff in our facilities. So one of the things we have to answer is how are we gonna maintain the health and safety of our students and our employees? How do we ensure that we continue offering our services, addressing the academic needs and the social and emotional and mental health, as well as supporting their food and nutrition needs and health needs. And this is the timeline that we're having to work with. On April 27 is when the allocation amounts were released. However, the rules for the program have been being released a few at a time. So it wasn't instant that districts had all the information. So on April 28th, the plan would be incorporated into the district's grant application and release. And then on July 27th, the application uses of funds plan is due to TEA. And then they would review the plan, and then once we receive the notice of award, we would post the plan to our website. As part of the stakeholder engagement, we have been doing presentations such as this to various groups in our educational community, which would include our principals, student advisory committee, DEIC, which also includes our DAC and our SHAC members, which includes teachers, parents, community members that represent each campus. We also met with the faith-based organizations. We also had a presentation during our safety committee, which includes our city partners and first responder type individuals in our community. We also met with the teacher associations with their representatives, realtors, and Dr. Pettis did a presentation to the chamber. We met with assistant principals, and last week we met with our lead custodian. And then, of course, on the 25th, you received the first presentation, and today we're now having our public hearing for public comments. And then we must submit the application by July 27th. So in terms of stakeholder engagements, the next step is we will be surveying our parents and our staff. That way everybody has an opportunity to provide input. Although we are receiving input as part of all of these presentations, we wanted to cast a wider net and ask them questions about the different types of options that we have for spending these funds, and then also give them an opportunity to give feedback on their suggestions and recommendations. So that will be going out very soon. And tonight is a public hearing, so this is available to the public to view, and anybody in our community is welcome to provide feedback as well. I've provided my contact information, my email, and my phone number, so we invite anyone in our community that has a recommendation to submit that information to me, and I will share it with the rest of the executive leadership team. At this time, this concludes my presentation. Do you all have any questions for me?
Very much, Garcia.
Thank you.
A lot of work.
I had a question. I have a question. Hold on.
Yes.
We're going to, it is allowable, so on this plan, you're going to put how much of the money of the 45 million is going to go back, right?
We are allowed that, and at this point, we have not set an amount as far as the reimbursement, what we can reimburse ourselves. That is why we're having these meetings, to get input from the different stakeholders. And then when we have collected all that information, then we're gonna sit down and review that and prioritize, and then determine, of course, preserving the 20% at a minimum for the learning loss, and then the rest of the funds, okay, how much is gonna go to, let's say, address facilities for indoor air quality? how much will go to pay the district back for previous expenditures, and it's gonna be based on, some of the costs that we've already incurred as well. How much will be going to salaries or staff, resources, instructional resources, and so forth.
Yeah, well, I'm glad because that's what I wanted to see, how you're going to divide it because, for clarity too, the people that are listening to all of this and they'll know where it's going. Because if you look at it, $45 million, I mean, we spend a lot on,
Yes.
our own money too, that has gone into all of this. But of course, I can see how you're going to.
And the good thing is that we have 3 to 4 years to spend the monies.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to academic achievement, we want to close that achievement gap as soon as possible.
Well, that can't wait.
That can't wait. Ventilation cannot wait either. And then the commissioner says, strongly recommend you reimburse yourselves because you're not going to get another opportunity. You need to have your healthy fund balance because if something else happens again, you need to have that fund balance to pay your employees. So it's really the 3 most important things is academic achievement, ventilation, pay yourselves, and then with what you have, then enhance your programming.
Yeah.
So Ms. Garcia, do you know what the time frame is once the application is turned in and reviewed? Do you know what happens? I know you said that, I think we received something from,
The notice of grant award.
but do you know what the time frame is?
Well, we have been discussing with Risica, because, she's the one that submits the grant applications for the district, that once we have submitted the grant, at that point, we can start allocating some of these resources. But as far as the turnaround time for a response, Ms. Risica, what has been your experience?
Generally, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. If you have to go into negotiations, sometimes that's 2 to 3 week turnaround. But, once we submit, if we submit on the, prior to the due dates of 27th of July, once it's submitted, it is considered to be an approvable form. You may have to go through negotiations, but we can start utilizing the funding once the grant has been submitted.
As long as we're spending it in the components that they told us. And remember last week, I showed you a little template, talked about supporting teachers, purchasing instructional materials, the infrastructure, and, keeping clean environments and so forth. So also additional personnel. So they gave us those 5 or 6 categories that's where we need to spend the money on.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Ms. Garcia, based on the meetings that you all had with the stakeholders, what are some of the concerns? What have you all heard from just trying to get feedback?
Well, we've received some requests for additional support within the classroom. For example, tutors, teen teachers, interventionists. We've also asked, when we met with the students, one of the big things was mental health support, providing a transition from home to now they're going to be socializing, they're going to have to be interacting. Whereas right now, sometimes they don't even turn on the camera. So that's going to be a big difference for them. In addition to that, the students wanted support with their parents, providing, training or, advice to the parents of what the students are going through and how they can better support their child. Other things, huge on the list is indoor air quality. That's a concern. So to continue with what we are offering in terms of the vaccinations and the health clinics that we're providing the testing, and they want extracurricular. The kids want to be outdoors. They want field trips. They want to be able to interact in ways that they haven't in such a long time. So there have been some very good discussions
Yes,
Um,
yes, and
Ms.
also,
Garcia, this is Juan Gonzalez. How were that information gathered? Was it meetings? I'm not sure how that information was gathered from the stakeholders. And was any of the board members invited to these meetings?
yes, the safety committee meeting did have a board member component. However, we didn't have one in attendance, but each of these meetings, we provided a presentation where we spoke to the group, provided the information, the PowerPoint, and then gave them an opportunity to provide feedback on the spot. Now, we also gave them information as, for example, like when we met with the lead custodians, they gave us some comments there on the spot. And Dr. Roberts is collecting that information on a spreadsheet. And then we provided contact information so that at a later date, because some of them don't feel comfortable speaking right there, that they could submit those comments via email. We're open to whatever, Teams, text messages, for providing them with the information. And we've already received some of that input with the DEIC. Each campus has a member representative, and that member representative was instructed to go back to their campus and share the information and also collect suggestions and recommendations. But of course, we don't want to leave it to chance. That's why we want to do a survey, to survey all district staff and all parents. And at that point, they can submit their individual responses as well.
and as far as the board, as I told you last week, in today's board workshop, you will have the opportunity to provide feedback, and not only here today, but you can also email, call me, and provide information. So we have had these meetings. Some people have chosen to be in person. A lot of them have been virtual. And these are some of the groups that we typically work with during a regular school year. The only new group that we added this year were the realtors, because of the fact that we're seeing a lot of subdivisions going up. So these are the groups of people that we normally work with. Either we have these groups, especially like the District Educational Improvement Council, that's required by education code. SHAC is a federal requirement. The District Advisory Council, that's also federal requirement, which are the parents, the Superintendent's Advisory Council. The Student Advisory Council, we have it because, we want to hear from students. Now, the chamber happened to invite me, and I took the opportunity and shared that with them. We've also reached out to Rotary and to Lions. Now, the guideline states that we can get stakeholder feedback with the groups that we normally work with, which are our stakeholders, and/or do surveys. Now, there's too many parents to reach out to. That's why the recommendation is do surveys with parents and staff, especially teachers. So we are going to do surveys as well. Now, we've always had a scribe, or we've recorded if they were virtual. And then what we're going to do is triangulate the data. Just post it along our boardroom, get together, and then look for threads. What is it that people are asking more for? And so forth. And that's how the plan is going to be developed, based on the recommendations and those threads. What's speaking loud? What are the needs? And then based on that template that TEA has provided as the allowable expenditures.
And Dr. Roberts also has a Google Sheet. It's a shared file that she provided the link at the DAIC meeting, so that anybody can go in with that link and type in their suggestions. Another one that she reminded me of, another suggestion that we received that was very interesting, was with the faith-based organization. But there was a lot of fear in the community. There was some grief and loss. And one of the suggestions was that we help them to receive closure for, what the loss was, maybe provide some kind of a memorial to acknowledge.
And as a matter of fact, we've been working on some ideas for that. And we'll be working with our licensed professional counselors so that we can do a district-wide event. And we want something that goes in tune with our community as well. And that's something that's very healing, but we want to work with our licensed professional counselors to develop the program and make it public where, you know, the students, the parents can see it public. And so we want to do that at the beginning of the school year so that this way we can put closure and start a new school year.
That's a great idea.
Very good.
Yes, and I mean, the feedback has been invaluable. But today, as the board, we'll have an opportunity for discussion and for ID to provide feedback, as I mentioned last time, during our regular board workshop.
Any other concerns, questions, anyone?
No.
Thank you very much, everyone involved in this project. Before I close this, let me do roll call just for verification, please. Mr. Jerry Zamora?
Here.
Ms. Veronica Mendoza?
Here.
Ms. Petra Ramirez?
Here.
Ms. Saris Iglesias?
Here.
Mr. Juan Gonzalez?
Here.
And yes, you see Mr. Gonzalez is on virtual. Mr. Roy Vela?
Here.
And Minnie Rogers, myself. So we have a full quorum. Thank you. And this meeting is now adjourned. It is 7:04.
Now we get about 10 minutes.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
We need 10 minutes.
We'll hold a board of trustees workshop or committee meetings in the video conference or telephone call. At this meeting, the board may deliberate or act on any of the subjects listed on the following agenda. The president may change the order of items listed below for the convenience of the board. In accordance with Governor Abbott's declaration of the COVID-19 public health threat and action to temporarily suspend certain provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act, a quorum of the District Board of Trustees will hold its regular board meeting by video conference or teleconference. The public will have the option to attend and participate in the meeting remotely by video conference or by teleconference. Public comment. Members of the public wishing to make public comments during the meeting must register by email at agallardo@mcisd.org before 8 p.m. on the date of the meeting. Members of the public must provide important information for her. At this time, Ms. Ana, do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am, we have none.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Perez, Superintendent's update.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Tonight's board update includes a House bill that is very important to our senior class. House Bill 999 was just recently approved, and it allows for all seniors that have completed all course requirements before graduation to go through an IGC committee, an individual graduate committee, and if graduation committee, and if the students have not passed the 5 end of course STAR exams, they are being exempted. Therefore, students may graduate, of course. They've already shown, because they have passed their classes, that they have mastered. However, there's always a twofold way to demonstrate mastery, which the second one is the end of course test. Now, this House Bill 999 is giving students an opportunity, as long as their individualized graduation committee agree to allow them to perform a more authentic assessment, such as a composition, different things that our coordinators have put in place. So our students that have completed all of their coursework for high school graduation, then even if they have not passed one exam, they are exempted from all 5 exams. And that was just passed very recently. We got, contacted by our legal counsel. We had asked him to be on the lookout for that. And immediately our coordinators, they were ready with those plans because we've done them in the past and they had already revised them. Therefore, we had an 8:30 meeting with our principals, our head counselors. We provided the information. Now, this is also very critical. And here at Mission CISD, we are very fortunate that our graduation is going to occur June 7th. There are other districts that have already graduated, and those students were not able to partake in the ceremony. That's not to say that they can't have another ceremony. However, with our students, even if they do not complete that other alternative assessment, authentic assessment, they can still march, but they have to complete that other authentic assessment in order for us to give them the diploma. So we can let them march, but they have to come back and complete that other alternative assessment, which in some instances, it's a composition, it's a project, but things that are very doable. So we're very grateful to the legislature and the governor to allow this opportunity to our students. So our campus administration, along with our counselors, have been working endlessly for some of our students to work with credit recovery. However, we're also being very realistic. We know that this year and starting last spring, there was a lot of disengagement. However, we do have students that are very close to finishing with their credit recovery. But if we have students that are very far behind, then we're going to have summer school for them. And then what we are proposing is that we would like to have a September graduation for those students that, they're seniors, but they have 15 credits or 16 credits. There's no way they're going to finish within a week, okay? But we want to give them hope. And we want to say, whatever the circumstances, guess what? We have summer school ready for you. And as long as they finish by August 31st, the Texas Education Agency will accept them as part of our graduation rate. So we want to give them all the way up to August 31st. And then after that, we want to give them the opportunity to graduate with a cap and gown because they deserve it. Some of these children are children that lost parents or have parents that are very ill, all kinds of circumstances, or their families couldn't work and they had to take the jobs. So, and I was told, well, that's never happened before. Well, a pandemic hasn't happened before in our lifetime. Our kids deserve that opportunity. So we want, collegiate is fine. All of the students met the requirements, but we met with all of our 3 high schools, and there will be students that would probably benefit from a September 1, early September graduation. And we want to help them celebrate with their cap and gown, invite their families, have a reception for them, and have a real graduation ceremony for them as well. So that is something that we'd like to propose, and we'd like to see that happen.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Too. Going back to the EOCs,
Yes,
you said they don't have to pass any of them?
any of them. And that just...
Not even attempt them?
Not even attempt them. And the reason why was because of the pandemic, they had less opportunities to take them. And so the bill just got approved. And as a matter of fact, last night at 10 something, the legal counsel knew we were waiting for that. So what time was it? Like 10:50 when he was emailing, and 6 o'clock this morning, we were getting all the information. And immediately we set up a meeting with our administrators and counselors because we were waiting for that bill. As a matter of fact, last Friday, it was advertised that all it needed was the governor's signature at the time. And then, it immediately became possible. So we want to take advantage of every opportunity. And like I said, as a school district, before we were a little bit disappointed because we were going to have graduation all the way to June 7th. It was a blessing in disguise. Okay?
And so, those IDCs or those projects, they have to be worked on and turned in before graduation, or did you
No.
say after
No,
graduation?
they can, all students in the state of Texas need to do is complete their classes to March. Okay? The tests, that's something different. Now, but we're not going to give them the diploma. They have to come back because, we don't give them a real diploma. So they have to come back either summer school or do it on their own. And some of them may be missing 3 tests, 4 tests. There's some 5 tests. So they've got work to do, but if they finished all the classes, they can march, but we give them the diploma when they do that alternate assessment. That's an authentic assessment. And our coordinators have developed those throughout the years, and they tweak them every year based on TEKS and so forth. But they're very doable. Because we know some children are not well test takers, especially with multiple choice. And these tests are different. They're authentic assessments where kids can write and do different things.
And is this bill that was approved, is it just for this school year?
What we're being told, it will be for our incoming seniors as well.
Okay.
Because of the fact that they suffered a lot as well. So what originally the bill wanted to cover all freshmen over, and it kept changing, and finally. So but we don't want to advertise it too much, okay? Because we want the kids to really, do well. But the seniors right now is our priority. And let me tell you, months back, we developed, well, Dr. Robert named it, Operation Graduation. And, and our staff was out there knocking at doors. We were making phone calls and getting kids, re-engaged and so forth. And the efforts have really made a difference. But this bill is going to make a huge difference in the lives of our kids. So our principals were ecstatic, especially our counselors, okay, and much more our kids.
It would also help in the idea of if they wouldn't graduate, can you imagine the overload on the core areas, on the
Yes,
classes? They're gonna have doubles,
absolutely.
more teachers, more of everything. So this
Every which way you see it, it's a huge gift.
And I think, I don't know if you have this answer or there's something that you all need to think about, but the summer school for these students, is it going to be in person, or are you going to give them the option of doing virtual?
It's
I have to be in
100%.
person.
I mean, I'm just,
Well, some of them may take it home and start working on it, okay? But in case they need assistance, we really want it to be in person. Unless there's something that impedes them, we'll try to work with them.
I'm talking about the ones that are going to finish in the summer, that are going to graduate in September.
The ones that have to return.
To summer school, they have to
Yes,
return.
well, yes, because you want to address that, Dr. Roberts?
So for right now, of course, if the students are able to,
Get closer to the mic, please.
and the students are credit complete, of course, they can walk through graduation if they get a certificate of completion. In order to get the diploma, they have to be credit complete and pass their EOC. And now the state is allowing the 5 IGCs if that's what's needed. And so those that are, today I got a message from one of the campuses that said, We found 11 students that will now get a diploma rather than, just a certificate of completion. I know the counselors are working really hard with the kids that are still needing their credits. But these are the children, like if they're not able to come in person, then we will probably look at a plan B. Ideally, we do want them to come in person because if they're struggling, then it's hard to sit in front of a computer. And so this way we would have, in all areas, I know Ms. Wisik is working very diligently to make sure that we have core teachers that are also doing the credit recovery in case students do need help in algebra or geometry or pre-cal or English 4. Those are some of the areas that kids are struggling with. It would be nice, even if they're doing the Edgenuity program in summer, then they have a core content teacher that can say, okay, let me get back into you real quickly and show you how to do this or that.
Yes.
So ideally, we're hoping that they will come in person.
Of course.
When we look at our numbers and things, just like in the past, we'll have to make a determination for secondary to make those allowances like we do for kids that are adoptions that are working full time and things like that. And then what we did last year was we were able to provide support up until like 8 o'clock in the evening. So if they were working during the day, they could call in and teachers were checking in with them too to help them.
Yes. We also have our migrant students that are working from North Dakota, Minnesota, and so forth. So though we make accommodations for them to work online, they work during the day.
So when we start the school year next year, we're starting all in school, or are we doing what we're doing now?
Okay. The funding from ESSER, from the federal government, their intention is that we utilize this funding so that we can open the doors. And so that we can have all of our students in. Of course, at the end of the day, parents have a choice.
Okay, so they're gonna have a choice either to.
Okay,
continue-
parents will always have a choice. However, you want to address that too?
We are waiting for a couple of house bills to see what the legislature is going to decide about that. We did apply for the virtual and hybrid school grant, technical support, and we did receive that, but it's all pending whether or not the state will allow virtual instruction next year. We're thinking that they probably will, but we are looking forward to really having, I'm thinking maybe 80% of our kids back in person. I think children are ready to get back to some sort of normalcy.
We need to.
Make sure that they have enrichment, things that are engaging them. We met with Fueling Brains this afternoon. Of course, that's our new interactive program, the brain development for pre-K. We're super excited about that. Just offering the kids different things to come into school. Because, virtual is one thing, but when a teacher can spot the student, the body language tells you so much. All of us that have been teachers, you start to teach something, you can tell right away from their body language. They get it or they don't. In front of the computer, you see their face, but you don't see their, all of that, those little things that you pick up on whether or not they need the help. We're looking forward to having tutors readily available, so that as a teacher starts teaching in person, then if the kids are not getting it, we don't want to wait till the end of the week. Then and there, let's pull a small group, let's get them together with 2 or 3 instructions so that they can be taught at that moment in time. Because I will tell you, we have lots and lots of gaps to close. We always had gaps, closing the gaps was
Now it's a bigger gap, yeah.
and now they are enormous. But you know what? In Mission, we have the staff. That was one of the things in meeting with Fueling Brains this afternoon that has been out doing campus visits. They're just so thrilled with all of our teachers. Our teachers, that every classroom they went into, super excited about what they say is that our teachers are just so committed to our students. And we know that in our administration. And so we have the right staff to do it. We have lots of work to do. We know that. We're seeing scores coming in, and it's a little bit scary that, we knew that we were going to have gaps. And so we are ready to address those. We are hoping that, of course, more kids will come in to in-person instruction. But we'll have that alternative for the hybrid or the virtual if the state allows it. It will be very different from what we've been doing now, because we will have separate teachers that are doing only remote and other teachers that are just doing in-person.
Yes,
So
and
totally different
I
models.
totally agree with you, Dr. Roberts. The other thing though, I just thinking out of the box right now is that, are we gonna make it mandatory for the kids that come back to be vaccinated or not? And I mean, that's, that's.
okay,
Not.
that the state will never allow.
Mandate.
Now, what the pediatricians are saying is hopefully by the end of July, by the end of the summer, we may have a vaccine available for children down to the age of 2. And then again, you always have parents that may not want to vaccinate. So that's why the ESSER funds are here, so that we can hire additional personnel, and also so that we can continue to maintain our schools as safe as possible.
Right.
So
With the mask mandate, where.
Even-
Yeah,
yes.
those questions, teachers are asking, well, in person, when we come back to summer school, are the kids gonna have to be wearing masks? And we say we can highly recommend.
we highly recommend,
Writing, with graduation, we just say we're highly recommending.
and we purchased, we purchased masks for graduation, right? Just like last year, we have all our personal equipment, ready for summer school, all of our PPE, everything. And we're going to model it ourselves because, it's something that we want to instill in our children. However, again, parents have a choice. So, so with that in mind, we'll have an opportunity to talk more about ESSER. Also, another update, Mission High School Fine Arts received a huge accolade. Our mighty Mission High School Flyers participated in the 2021 Rio Grande Valley Dance Educators Contest, and they earned a Division I from each of the judges. This is the first time in the school's history that they have received this accolade. So congratulations to our hires.
Is this an in-person type competition or they did it virtual?
I think this was in person.
In person?
Yes, this was an in-person.
And I think our
Just happened.
ask, I know I'm going a little bit back here
Uh-huh.
about next school year. I think all our answers should be, it's in person. Don't
Oh.
put options out there. Let's
No.
Going back in.
Oh, yeah, that is absolutely, this funding, that's what it's for, so that we can have after-school activities, outdoor activities. When we accept this funding, it's because we're opening our doors 100%. And why, COVID conditions have changed. All right. Also, another accolade is the fact that we just got word that we received some grants, $10,000 grants for Veterans Memorial High School and Mission High School. Project Lead the Way is a nationally recognized mission-driven organization that is transforming the learning experience for millions of pre-K-12 students and thousands of teachers in the U.S. Project Lead the Way empowers students to develop in-demand, transportable knowledge and skills through pathways in computer science and engineering. Project Lead the Way Computer Science engages students in true-to-life activities like creating an online art portal or developing problem-solving apps. Project Lead the Way Engineering immerses students in activities like designing a home, programming electronic devices, or exploring algae as a biofuel source. Mission High School has been using Project Lead the Way for the past 6 years in engineering and in computer science. They received a $10,000 grant from Project Lead the Way to expand their computer science program to now include the cybersecurity pathway that is very much needed nationally and internationally. So both Veterans High School and Mission High School will be adding the computer science pathway. So each campus is receiving a $10,000 grant. The grants are for the Project Lead the Way training. Teachers are committed to attending 2 weeks of professional development in the summer and using the curriculum to support the teaching of Project Lead the Way. So congratulations to Veterans Memorial High School and Mission High School for receiving this grant for Career and Technology. Oh, and Mission Collegiate? Okay, wasn't on my list. Oh, so it's 30,000. Excellent. Mission Collegiate, congratulations as well. Okay. On another note, last week, I received an invitation from the National School Board Association. They selected 20 superintendents throughout the nation from around the country. And they were looking for superintendents with experience and expertise in K-12 to participate in a roundtable discussion on the expenditures of ESSER funds. And what they would, I received an invitation to participate, and that will be June the 8th. And what they'd like for us to talk about is the value of investing outside of the classroom with instructional technology to support services and how we can maintain the expenditures for the future, that everything that we're doing for outdoor learning opportunities, okay, we're going to use this monies. You know, we can use it for the farmers program, to grow vegetables, to do all kinds of things outdoors, and also purchase instructional technology. And then we also have to give recommendations as to how are we going to sustain it in the future. So this is part of their conference, and I received that invitation and I did accept it because these other individuals are individuals from high caliber school districts around the country. So it's a great opportunity for me.
Can I ask a question, Dr. Perez, real quick?
Yes.
What about our elementaries for our children playground?
Oh, as a matter of fact.
We need that.
And we're going to give you opportunity on the agenda to talk, to give us feedback. And that is one of the things that our principals have been talking about, our teaching staff, you know, that, and as a matter of fact, one of our principals sent us like a dissertation of everything that the kids are able to learn when they're in a playground, okay? When so many kids want to use the slide, they have to problem solve to take turns, okay? They develop negotiation skills and so forth. And it was just a beautiful proposal as to, in talking to her staff, as to why we needed to invest in playground equipment.
It's not only technology, you know, they need.
Not only technology. Now, this particular forum that the National School Board Association, that's their topic that they wanted us to talk about. But if opportunities come and they ask me for other feedback, you know, those are the things that I can share what our staff is talking about. You know, outdoor learning opportunities, free play. There's a lot of value in free play.
Free play.
Okay, another thing that I wanted to inform is that as a district for the last 3 years, we've had 3 goals that we've been focusing on: attendance, academic achievement, and service delivery model in looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, we have a system to measure attendance. We also have incentives for attendance. Academic achievement, we have systems in place to measure academic achievement, to provide different interventions when students don't master. However, when it comes to service delivery model and and making sure that we cover Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, basic needs for our students or our staff, we really don't have a system to measure how we're growing towards that goal. So one of the things that is going to help us is when TASB does that climate survey, that's going to help us to give us a baseline so that we can continuously improve. However, meanwhile, we've started last year, we did do some training on the service delivery model. Throughout the last 3 years, we've been working with, you know, treating everybody with dignity and respect, making sure that children's needs, basic needs are met, shelter, food, the social emotional, we're going to continue with that. However, as an administration, This is the goal that we're going to be focusing on, especially that social emotional, and how do we measure it? How do we know how we're doing? So just the way we've come up with the look fors when we go into a classroom and do a classroom observation, and we've calibrated with principals, assistant principals, district staff, as to what are the look fors, in quality instruction, student engagement, teacher providing feedback, corrective feedback, the engagement. The same thing. What are the look fors in every one of our facilities, in every one of our campuses and our departments? What are the look fors that tell us where we're at in providing a quality service delivery model, not only to students, but to parents, but to our staff? How do we measure that we are providing and meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs for our children and our staff? So that is the next level of work that we're embarking. Of course, we cannot take our finger off on attendance. We need to continue to work on attendance. We need to continue to work on academic achievement, but we need to develop that common understanding and come up with what are the look fors and the norms. So that is something that we're going to be working with our administration through our academies as we begin the next school year. The executive leadership team has already started researching, and we're working on that. And that is the update for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Transforming teaching and learning commitment.
Before we start on that, we would like to move an item from finance. And we have Mr. Jorge Gonzalez from Hidalgo County Appraisal District. And simply because he's been waiting, Ms. Ruiz?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. We have George Gonzalez this evening with us. He's the Assistant Chief Appraiser with the Hidalgo County Appraisal District, and he will be providing the board an update on an agenda item that we have brought back to you for your consideration at the December board meeting regarding some calculation value account that have been made at the state. We'll be sharing some information with you tonight. So, Gonzalez?
Good evening, Dr. Perez and members of the board. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, thank you
Yes,
for
we can.
having us back. I know that Ms. Reese and Dr. Perez have been instrumental in keeping in touch and us going back to the information that we shared with y'all back in December. As y'all know, we decided to file a lawsuit against the comptroller regarding the study findings that the results from the state in 2019. Just real quick, we get audited by the state every other year. 2019 being a year that we did not, according to the state, pass local value for Mission CISD, which simply put meant that our values were too low in comparison to what the state appraisers were coming out with. We decided to file a lawsuit on your all's behalf, and obviously we're footing the bill on that, simply because the way the property value study works, it's linked to the equitable distribution of fundings throughout the state. And if we get an invalid finding from the state, that's going to have a long-term negative effect for the school district. The goal is not to have an invalid finding any of these years. However, when we have one, we file a lawsuit, and we've gone to the point of having informal mediation with the getting some information rectified. And we went as far as a SOA judge, the State Office of Administrative Hearing judge in the Travis County, and we did not get a favorable ruling. That's when we hired the law firm to go ahead and represent us in the school district. The May the 28th, which was last Friday, because of COVID, obviously, all the courts in Travis County, which is where this is located, were basically, I guess everything was upside down. We finally had a hearing on Friday, the 28th. Our firm representing us, Kirk Sweeney and his firm, to try to get a scheduled hearing date for obviously the future. However, in the interim, because we didn't meet the value from the state for 2019, that automatically triggered another audit from the state for 2020. Okay. And the initial findings from the state were that we were also invalid for Mission CISD. What we did at that point was we gathered all our data, all our evidence, and we were allowed to file a protest with the state for 2020. And we just got our results last week that all of the irregularities that we saw and that we felt needed to be addressed by the state, they actually agreed with our findings. And they came back that for 2020, we did meet a local value. So we were declared valid, which simply put means that the state's saying we did our job for 2020, but we didn't do it for 2019. In going to the judge's court last Friday, we felt that because we passed the 2020, our need to go to court is still there. However, we are due for another audit for 2021. The state is about to do another audit for 2021 again, and those results will come out in February. So we were hoping that the judge would understand that. So what she did was she set the court date for April. Why did we do that? Because we figured if we get a valid finding for 2021 for Mission CISD, then there probably won't be any need to go to the lawsuit at this point in time. I will let you know that the state made an attempt to get the actual hearing thrown out completely. The judge would have nothing of it at that point and simply told the state that that was not the purpose of this hearing last Friday. The purpose was we have to give due process to the school district, and there will be a hearing. Of course, if we get a valid finding come February for 2021 tax year, then it would probably be a moot point to actually pursue a lawsuit at that point in time. I don't know if there's any questions, Dr. Perez, from either yourself or any of the board members. I know it's a lot, but.
Any questions?
So actually, it's just a waiting game until, it's for 2021. I mean, until they decide, right? If you're really going to go into the lawsuit or not?
That is correct. We find that out, then we feel like we're going to be in, as you know, we just sent out our notices a few weeks ago. The values went up again, but we get pressure from the state all the time. So we feel confident that our values are better in line now, according to the state.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gonzalez? Madam President, may he be excused?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Great work.
Have a nice evening. Take care.
Likewise.
Two.
Okay. Love you too. People love you too.
Okay, so where do we pick up?
Okay. Well,
Dr. Mix?
now we go back to transforming teaching and learning.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Roberts?
Thank you. Good evening, Board President, Ms. Rogers, members of the board, Dr. Pettis, members of the audience. This evening, the Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee is bringing before the board consideration and approval of professional development for the elementary schools and integrating social emotional techniques. At the board meeting on May the 25th, 2021, the Board of Trustees approved Capturing Kids' Hearts as the provider of social emotional professional development for the secondary campuses. At the time, the board requested that we extend that opportunity to the elementary schools. And so I do need to bring that before the board for consideration. It will be about $435,000, $435,300 this first year. And I know we're in the process of getting the purchasing process in order, so Ms. Ruiz has been working with that purchasing aspect for that.
We've been working with legal since the day that the board provided feedback that, elementary teachers should also be considered with attorney. We've also, contacted the vendor to ensure that the pricing, would be the same. In the original solicitation that the district put out, elementaries was included, but it was included for year 2 of training. So, this item that Dr. Roberts is bringing forward for your consideration will be moving elementary's year 2 training to year 1, and the cost will be the same, which is $435,300. We anticipate that this cost will be covered by the ESSER 3 monies. We will claim that as a pre-award cost. We will work with Ms. Risica, when she submits the application, to include this cost as a pre-award, so that the state can consider that when we make the expenditure and then receive reimbursement as well.
I have a question. Dr. Roberts, when you first brought it up the last meeting, you only included secondary,
Yes.
not the elementary.
Right, we did.
Why was that?
Because at the time, we did not know about all the extra funds when we were going out for our bids, bringing it back before we had a certain amount of federal funds that we knew that we would invest. And so we were our plan was to begin with secondary or high-speed areas, and then the following year to extend to with the ESSER funds. And then whenever the board brought that up, we said, oh, that's great, because then what happened is we're gonna go district-wide. And then working with the vendor, I also asked that all the auxiliary staff be included for special sessions, and they're going to be providing trainings, not the full 2 days that the teachers would get, but the support for our auxiliary staff, bus drivers, transportation, custodial, CMP, and they can provide those sessions in Spanish for us, so that will all be included. And so the reason I didn't bring it forward was because of the funding at the time.
That's my question, because I thought maybe there's a reason, a specific reason why you wanted to wait.
Yes.
But no, if that's because of the funds, that's fine.
Because of the funding. And so all of the elementaries, we've been talking to them, and they were super excited as well, so.
So you're saying that the elementaries were going to be included the second year? Is that what I understood?
We were gonna add them the second year because we knew that the cost the first year for secondary, half of our teachers, 850 more or less, staff members in secondary, and then we have like a little over 800 in elementary. It would have been double the cost. And at the time, we didn't feel that we had the money to go ahead and go forward with it. But once we knew that ESSER was coming in, then we said, okay, and then after you all mentioned it at the board meeting, we wanted to see if we could go ahead and push it forward for this coming year. And then we can integrate district-wide. Everybody speaks the same language. That's the beauty of all of it, is that we're all on the same page and we all speak the same language. All of our students and staff in the same manner.
So the 435 is for the
elementary only. Yes.
Because we approved the 1.4
The 1.4 million, yes, sir.
For secondary.
That was for the 3 years.
for secondary,
And so that was
35.
secondary, and now we'll be adding.
elementary.
So the 435 is just for the first year for elementary.
This program is, I know, similar, we mentioned it, a team lead.
Yes.
They certify instructors also to
Yes.
follow through with, okay.
It is now called lead worthy, but formerly it was team lead, and so with elementary, we don't have that component that starts in junior high and high school. And so they've already integrated that in the 1.4 million that we brought last week, that's already been integrated. And so one of the questions I had, of course, when we dealt with the Capturing Kids' Hearts again, I said, okay, but you're adding all of these courses, and I said, we may not have that many. He said, no, but if you do have them, they're available, but we won't charge you. You're only going to charge you for the ones that you actually want certified.
Get certified to, in
Yes.
order to follow.
And so hopefully, and it may be that we want a few more teachers certified and we will, just because of the situation today.
Yeah.
And especially if we're able to offer an academic program, that would be a great curriculum to use for kids after school.
Yes. ESSER allows. Yes.
Thank you for looking into the elementaries.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions on the Capturing Kids' Hearts? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts.
That we're bringing before the board is the consideration and approval of professional development for teachers on student learning objectives. As you'll recall, Mission CISD has applied for teacher incentive allotment, which was passed by the 86th Texas legislature. The teacher incentive allotment allows for a pathway for teachers to earn a 6-figure salary based upon meeting several
Yeah.
criteria. One is that they are SBEC certified, they have 1 year of creditable service, that they have a class roster of the winter submission, and that they're appraised through T-tests, and that they show student growth. We surveyed all of the teachers district-wide, the campuses and the teachers, to determine whether or not they wanted to be a part of the teacher incentive allotment, and needless to say, all of the campuses said yes. We asked them what growth measure, and the majority of the teachers wanted to use the student learning objectives, because every teacher has to complete student learning objectives. They were trained about 3 or 4 years ago on the student learning objectives, but in order for us to really use that measure, if we get approved for the teacher incentive allotment, we want to retrain all of our teachers. And so I'm bringing before the board the training through Region 1, which they are part of the cooperative, and that training would be about $64,500 to train 1,000 teachers. And we're planning on offering that training during our professional learning conference in August, and the teacher will be paid to attend that day.
How much? 100? 64,000,
It's $64,500
stipend.
teachers.
but the stipend for the teacher?
$90.
90.
Yes.
So once all of them are trained, then we are going to start the program, or actually we were going to start the
We do
program?
not know. Right now, we are waiting for word from TEA as to whether or not our application is accepted. Whenever we did apply for the teacher incentive allotment, then they did tell us that if there were any provisions that we needed, they were going to work with us on that. We are hoping, of course, that we get to be a part of the teacher incentive allotment. Either way, the teachers have to every year they have to write student learning objectives. We feel that over the past 3 or 4 years, you know, that how when you start something, you start with a bang, and we just need to come back and revisit, make sure that we retrain all of our teachers, all of our administrators, and then we closely monitor, implement with fidelity.
Because this is what they use to develop their lesson plans for the 6 weeks. So
The program,
process.
the program entails is that we're going to be doing it like we do the other program. So are we gonna have the money to pay, but, you know,
The teacher incentive allotment, if we're approved, the state pays.
Yeah. okay.
It does not come out of our.
But what about for the end of the year, or is it going to take time for the evaluation to see that it was in
All of that
place?
is part of the application process and all of that. We do have to pay $500 per teacher to be a part of that. If our application, then they kind of reimburse it.
Okay.
They kind of want, I guess we could call it like, put a down payment on the house or something.
Yes.
That's,
The
We're already spending just to make sure that we're interested and so that
yeah, because we're, you know, you're getting, we're getting the teachers all excited about the program, we're gonna train them, and we're gonna do this, and yet we're not gonna have the money, you know, like the $500.
Yes, okay, but we will. Now, but the thing is, this professional development is best practices.
Yeah, I know it is.
Whether we were to apply for it or not, like 3 years ago, you know, they were trained on it. Now, the fact that they want to use it as a measure, as a pre and a post for the teacher incentive allotment, that's great, because we kept hiring more teachers that, you know, they were trained at the campus, but this is going to be, you know, done by a professional again. Now, next year will be the data year. Okay, we have to collect data as if the grant is already approved. Okay, so we'll collect the data, and then
the data must be validated by Texas Tech. And so that's.
so we have to do the whole process.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell us whether we're approved.
The career ladder, when we used to have it, you know, it was a paid into. It is, but, there's more
To it.
parameters to it, as they have.
And it's like a 3-year process. So we gotta get started. Now, TA is really pushing for it. Now, many school districts have applied for 2 schools. Last week, there was an article on the paper, which a local school district applied for 2 schools and 4 teachers. Okay, here, everybody wants to be part of it. So it depends how much funding TA has as well. But they're really pushing for it.
Yeah, because
So we're
they're gonna get good money.
power.
They're gonna get good money,
Yes.
at the end of the day.
That was the whole purpose, to keep.
Oh, yeah, and you can imagine our kids learning too, so it's really, we're gonna,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And especially since we do not validate our own data, Texas Tech does that, it's really critical that we implement what we validate too.
yeah. It's a win-win.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, anyone? Okay, moving on.
May I move my 2 items to consent agenda for next week?
Damn.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, Facilities and Environment Committee,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rogers, members of the board, Dr. Pettis, superintendent, members of the audience. The first agenda item I have is consideration and approval to accept administration's rankings and enter into negotiations in the order of ranking for security entrances for Alta Memorial Junior High, Cape White Junior High, Pearson Elementary, and Roosevelt Alternative. Advertisements in the local newspapers were posted on April 28, 2021, and May 5th, 2021. A pre-proposal meeting was held on Thursday, May 6, 2021, with proposals scheduled to be publicly opened on Thursday, May 13, 2021. There were no proposals submitted at that time, and administration extended the solicitation for an additional 2 weeks. The second pre-proposal meeting was held on Thursday, May 20th, 2021, and proposals were opened on Thursday, May 27th, 2021 at 2 p.m. Pre-ranking of the proposals were conducted by Ms. Lorena Garcia, myself, Ms. Dora Garcia, Mr. Joel Garcia, and Ms. Daisy Cuevas assisted on Friday, May 28, 2021 at 11 a.m. 2 proposals were submitted for this project. However, 1 proposal was incomplete and could not be included in the ranking process. Thus, administration presents 1 proposal to consider at next week's regular Board of Trustees meeting. And the loan proposal was for Refco for $85,625 with a base bid, and an alternate for $6,850 for 4 sets of electric strikes, power supplies, and wall switches furnished and installed for a total cost of $92,475, and this will be funded through the Safety and Security Grant that we have.
What was the company, what was the?
Refco was the award,
Refco.
loan proposal, Refco.
Why do you think no proposals were turned in or what?
What happens in these cases is for projects like this, and this is glass storefronts, the vendors are usually subcontractors to general contractors. They're not, they really don't bid on their own for projects. So, and we didn't, in order to get more proposals, it would be a general contractor, and this is too small of a project. So these are usually subcontractors. That's why, we didn't get very much interest.
What did you say was the alternate? What did it in?
Electronic door strikes
Okay.
to open the doors.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item we have is consideration approval to accept administration's rankings and enter negotiations in the order of ranking for the Mission CISD Structural Maintenance Warehouse Project. This is for the roofing at the project at maintenance. Advertisements in the local newspapers were posted on May 19, 2021 and May 26, 2021. A pre-proposal meeting was held on Thursday, May 27, 2021, and proposals will be opened on June 3rd, 2021 at 2 p.m. And this is Thursday. So at this meeting, we do not have, of course, the proposals, so they will be presented at the board meeting. Next agenda item we have is consideration approval of substantial and final completion, less betterment fund allowance, and final payment, less liquidated damages for the Tom Landry Stadium scoreboard project. As per PBK Architects and Electronics, the Tom Landry Stadium scoreboard project is completed. Thus, they present at this time consideration approval of substantial and final completion, less betterment fund allowance, and final payment, less liquidated damages for the stadium. There are no possible liquidated damages for this project, and there were no project allowances or contingency funds due back. This agenda item will be presented at next week's regular Board of Trustees meeting. The next agenda item is consideration approval of procurement of job order contracting. Acronym is JOC, services. Job order contracting is a unique procurement process that helps facility owners complete a large number of repair, maintenance, renovation, and straightforward new construction projects with a single competitively awarded contract. Unlike traditional bidding, where each project is identified, designed, and then put out to bid, job order contracting establishes competitively bid prices upfront and eliminates the need to separately bid each project. It is an easy and expedited construction sourcing option. How does job order contracting save time? Traditional procurement cycles typically take months to complete and require a significant amount of administrative and technical resources. Once a job order contract is awarded, the owner can ask the contractor to perform a series of projects. There is no need to prepare, copy, advertise, and distribute bid packages for each project. The time-consuming front-end process is completed one time rather than repeated for each project. The procurement process takes weeks, months. Cost of construction is a firm and preset unit prices. Each task includes a detailed description, unit of measurement, unit price, and where applicable, demolition costs. The unit prices contain locally developed direct costs for material and labor. As we enter into hurricane season, it is essential to have the capability to expedite emergency repairs where immediate remediation is required. Administration requests approval to seek competitive proposals from bidders to establish multiple award contracts for general construction services using the job order contracting job for the services listed below, which is electrical, pipe fitting, structural steel, masonry, asphalt, carpentry, doors, demolition, asbestos, water damage, and so forth. This job order contract service will be used on services for construction projects up to the $500,000 total construction cost. Any services above this threshold will be brought forward to the Board of Trustees for consideration and approval. All projects that utilize job order contracts will be presented to the committee as informational items. Administration will begin advertising and evaluating for the procurement of job order contracting services so that the board may review and approve. As per the committee meeting, the job order contracts will be for a 3-year term with an annual performance evaluation or as the board recommends. Multiple contractors may be selected for the job order contract services. Administration will present this agenda item at next week's regular Board of Trustees meeting.
So this is like the on-call that we have right now with structural engineer, civil, but it's just different line of services.
This is for all the construction disciplines, electrical, plumbing, water remediation, and it expedites the projects on the $500,000 threshold.
You don't have to go through
How does
procurement.
it expedite it?
In our own maintenance, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We don't have to go through the bidding process. Like I have to bring to the board consideration, approval of a project, consideration and approval of the procurement process, of the wage rate, the consideration approval of an architect engineer. Then we have to go for competitive seal proposals, and then we rank them and then bring them back to the board. All those steps are eliminated because the work is already approved for certain contractors, and the prices are already established, how much they're going to charge to build a wall or fix a roof, patch a roof. The prices are already established. We don't have to go through all this bidding process. It expedites the process.
But we give them the contract, but we don't pay them until they do the service, right?
Until they do the service, yes.
They're contracted to be on call, but whenever they do the labor, that's when we're gonna pay them. They don't have a set salary from us.
Well, there's a set reimbursement.
They go, there's already an established scale for the different disciplines that they charge. It's already preset. Similar to the on-call, we had their rates. This is the same way.
Oh, so you have the rates already set?
They'll already be set.
To cover whatever they're going to. It's
Exactly,
like when you call the air conditioned guy and it's $90, so on top of what already works.
exactly.
I think that's a good idea, Mr. Rivera, to be honest with you. I just hope that it's not only one person, that there's a rotating, like a set, just so we can rotate it.
Yes.
And it's not monopolized by one person or one entity.
It's open to multiple contractors in every discipline. Yes.
Yeah, because if we get it hurt, like, we're the head of our own maintenance, I need like electrical. But I'll ask Marie, you know,
Oh, no.
our own,
For the work that this is not for the regular work orders and stuff. Maintenance will still do that. This is in case like a hurricane comes through and blows through a building that our staff can't do that. That's the type of construction work. Something that we would, fit out anyway.
okay.
And require a company to be bonded,
Exactly.
meet the bidding requirements.
And they have the resources. Say there's demolition, we don't have that type of resources. And they have the manpower also. Again, this is for larger projects, under $500,000 and below.
I have a question. There's no retainer that we have to pay?
Now that the services are not rendered, no.
No.
Not a service.
There's no retainer. Okay, thank you.
And this will be presented at next week's regular Board of Trustees meeting.
Thank you.
If there is no questions on the agenda items, we now have Mr. Hugo Avila, MEP engineer from DBR Engineers, to make a presentation on air quality and air purification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Mind if I take my mask off?
No.
I've been vaccinated.
Go ahead.
It's easier for me to speak.
What's your name, sir?
What?
Hugo Avila.
Hugo Avila.
And I was told that you are a mission graduate.
I am in class of 89. Class of 89.
Remember him.
Yes. I never thought I'd be the
Did you go through her,
girl at the end of all this.
her cosmetology class?
I know where so when I did hair, I was experimented on quite a bit.
That's what you wanted?
So good evening, board members, Dr. Perez, thank you for having me. Today, this presentation, really, I wanted to be a conversation. It really needs to be a conversation between me as your on-call engineer. I wanted to be here so y'all could see me, and I'm sure we're gonna get to do a lot of projects together. And we're gonna want to have this conversation with you. So, can y'all see that? Yeah. So the first thing is air quality. I know this is a word a couple of words that have been tossed around now more than ever. As we're trying to get back into school, there's this conversation, people are talking about air quality. So what is air quality? I think that's the big question. So air quality is defined by ASHRAE, and I know you've heard that term before. It's a presentation that was done by maintenance over to all of y'all and to some of the staff members. I actually looked over the presentation. It was pretty good. I thought it was pretty thorough. So ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. So basically a bunch of engineers got together and said, you know what, we need to standardize everything that we do so we're all on the same page. And so ASHRAE, a long time ago, came up with this standard called, there we go, because you can't see it on here, 62.1. So ASHRAE 62, actually it was 62 before it became 62.1, but ASHRAE 62.1 basically establishes what we call minimum air quality standards. So what does that mean? What is air quality? So imagine we're in this room, there's not many of us here. If we were to shut off the air conditioning, after a while, after being here for a few hours, the air starts to kind of get a little stale. You kind of start smelling everybody, you know, your cologne or deodorant, you know. And so the idea of air quality, when ASHRAE came up with this standard, is we need to improve the air. We need to bring in fresh air into our buildings and try to minimize really that. Other people really noticing everybody else around them. And so inadvertently though, it did other things. It brought a lot of needed oxygen into our buildings. So that there was definitely a lot of improvements. Plus, we talk about air quality. Again, we're talking about a room, you got air conditioning systems, they circulate the air. After a while, the air can kind of get stale. So bringing in this fresh air from the outside mixes in with that air and sort of dilutes it. And it gives us that better air quality. And we can all know, we all see, we've been in rooms, as soon as the air comes on, we're like, hey, it feels better, you know? And so essentially, that's what this standard says. For us, for you all, in a typical classroom, okay, there's gonna be terms that you're gonna hear. And so I'll try to explain them again, please ask questions. So ASHRAE established a minimum value per person. In classrooms, obviously it's per student. And typically what we see in a classroom, you've got 25 kids, and so we establish about 15 CFM per student. So what that means is 15 cubic feet of air every minute that air is brought in for ventilation. It's no different than opening your windows. We want that ventilation in there. We need that ventilation in there. And so those minimum standards is what we design for. Whatever we do a brand new building, we work that in. That is automatically worked into the air conditioning system because imagine here, we all live in the valley. In the summer, it's hot and it's humid. And it takes a lot of energy to take that hot, humid air, cool it down, dry it, and put it into a space. And so all our air conditioning systems, when we design them, take that into account. Some of our older schools, they try. We did our best. And so that's why after about 15 years, you start looking at all your systems and really looking back and say, hey, it's around that time we need to start to improve our systems. Why? Because all these standards now, hey, we got to bring some more of that fresh air. So in a typical classroom, about 375 CFM. And that's what we're going to be seeing. Any questions related to the term air quality and how it kind of plays into really in our classrooms?
You're doing a good job of explaining. So the CM and the FM and all that, we're getting it.
This is a big topic that a lot of parents are asking about.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so.
And I will say this, the ASHRAE 62.1 is a standard. The mechanical code, which all cities adopt, the state adopts it, you as a district have to comply with them, makes reference to this standard. And so this standard is technically not code, but code makes it part of it by saying, hey, when you design a building, it has to comply with this. Okay, and so that's very important. Very important to note.
The universal standard, that's what you're talking.
It is. It is starting in the United States, but obviously we're seeing it everywhere now because it is a good standard.
So are you going to offer over?
Pardon?
I'm getting ahead of you. Are you going to offer over the standard?
Over standard? So it is to over-ventilate. No, the idea is, yeah, it'd be nice if we could ventilate, all we want. However, it costs a lot of money because it takes a lot of energy to take that air, to dry it out, and to put it into a space. And so we've got to be very conscious of that. It's so easy to say, yeah, hospitals do it because they don't have a choice. You're trying to dilute the air of contaminants, because the whole idea is that the air outside is cleaner than anywhere else. And so bringing it in, it does come at a premium. The next thing I want to talk to you about is air purification. So we talk about air purification, and you hear these terms, MERV, right? And so ASHRAE, again, there's that organization again, came up with, their standards for filtration. And, their standard 52.2 talks about MERV ratings. So a MERV 1, it's really nothing. And down all the way to a MERV 16. So where do you see MERV 16s? You see them in hospitals. HEPA filters, OR rooms, they're very effective in cleaning the air, but that also comes at a premium. For us in schools, we recommend, anywhere between 8 and 13. 8 is pretty good, pretty standard. We see that a lot. 13, you're pushing it a little bit. And the reason I say that is, it's important, again, when we look at old schools, new schools. Our older schools, before these standards came into play, the 1-inch filter was all we did, right? And that puts you somewhere at about a 7, if you're lucky. And so moving forward, and when we design air conditioning systems, that filter, this is a funny one, I tell young engineers, filters, they get more efficient when they get dirtier. Because the dirtier they are, the more stuff they catch, right? And of course, you're trying not to get there. But what happens is when the filters do get dirtier, it drives up the amperage on those motors because you're trying to pull that air, it just won't go. And so when we look at our older schools, again, we had the conversation with the school about, well, what kind of filter should we use? And we talked about, MERV 8's good, MERV 13, you're going to be pushing it. That's too much filtration for some of your existing systems. 11, that's still pretty good. That gets you into the, into this category here. Let's see, can you all see, oops, can you see my mouse? There we go. That gets you into this areas right here. And again, the higher the MERV rating, the more filtration you can have. Questions related to filters? That must be really captivating you all.
I'd like to say something on the MERV filters. Really what that means is just the thickness. It's like our mask that we're wearing now. The thicker it is, the harder it is to breathe in air. So the thicker we go on the filters for the AC units, the more the motors are going to work and possibly burn out. So we're trying to find a good
medium. And we found in also talking to other school districts, the MERV 11s doesn't really have an effect on a lot of the existing air conditioning systems. So you can, that's a really good measure. If that's what you're going to go with, again, that's really good.
So what are we looking at for us?
We have MERV 8, and we're working together with Ms. Ruiz and Ms. Dora Garcia, the purchasing department, on possibly going to MERV 11 on those units that we can. Yes.
Okay. And definitely moving into, whatever it is that you're going to be replacing equipment, definitely work that into really the design, the purchase of the equipment, and ask for those. You want it to be able to handle the MERV 13. And another part of air purification, and we talk about air purification, talk about capturing of things in filters, but air purification also involves really disinfecting the air, because that's another way of purifying it. One of the most common ones, and it's an old proven technology, is UV lights. And here, I've noted the UVC. It's very important though that, that it be a UVC, because research has shown that UVC actually kills viruses and bacteria. Any other type of UV is really not meant for that. There are UV lights out there that can be put into air conditioning systems, but they're really meant to keep coils clean and not really disinfect the air. But the ultraviolet and the UVC really is the class of UV filters. We call them filters because in a way, again, they're still cleaning the air. That can be put into airstreams to help disinfect the air. And one that you've probably heard again is bipolarization. So the idea of the bipolarization is you have these devices that actually produce ions. And so when these ions get into the air, they have the ability to actually take things apart. So if you have like a large complex molecule, let's say that the molecule is what makes a sweaty smell, I'll use that term, it can actually take it apart. And the reason I say that is bipolarization has been around for a while. We used to use them on field houses all the time. Why? Because they smell. Plus, there was a time when you had staph and you had other diseases that were being, introduced into our locker rooms because they're humid. There's a lot of human interaction. And so bipolarization was a very common practice for us as engineers to include in our designs to help clean the air. And so now we know the technology has been there. We know what it can do. And, it can neutralize odors. It can kill, bacteria. And so now we're taking that technology and sort of bringing it into the classrooms, where before we didn't really need to put them in the classrooms. One thing that's very important, and I try to caution everybody that wants to go out and buy a bunch of bipolarization, is UL, the Underwriters Laboratory, came up with a standard called UL 2998, because one of the things is that bipolarization, certain devices have the ability to create ozone. So ozone is O3, also can break down and oxidize complex molecules. The problem is ozone's not safe for humans. You don't want to be in a room where there's ozone. And so that was very important because there was complaint when some of these bipolarizations got installed that they were producing ozone. So UL came out with a standard And so whatever bipolarization the district is gonna, possibly consider, we just need to make sure that it complies with this UL standard. It's very important. I can't stress it enough. Right now, there's a lot of people trying to sell these, and we just got to be careful that we're getting, the right devices.
Mr.
And,
Avila.
yes, sir.
It's on bipolar ionization, these units, or where are they installed?
So typically, the bipolarization will be done in the air handlers. There's been some different schools of thought about, should I put it right at the air handler, past the coil? And there's other schools of thought, even within our industry, says, no, you really should put it closer to the, close to the air devices, because you want those ions to be in the airstream. They're not harmful to humans, but you want them in the airstream so that when they do come into contact with some type of organic material, or odors, it takes them apart. Because they're very short-lived. They don't live very long. So if you have them in the air handler and you got 50 feet of duct run, yeah, it's kind of far. But if you have a small classroom where the unit's in the classroom and it comes right out, that's not a problem.
So what is it's pretty expensive if we're gonna go district-wide or number of schools. So what is the timeline?
The recommendation too.
So right now, if I may,
Yes.
you're not the only ones looking at this technology. Everybody is. And just like anything, material costs are going up, availability is going down. We're starting to see, the ESSER funds has certainly generated a lot of interest. And so, yeah, there's going to be they're going to be available. There may be a delay. As far as the install, they're really not that hard to install. You just need to be strategic.
So are we looking at 1 year, 2 year?
No, I don't think you'll be at 2 years, but certainly you need to be strategic about it. Within the next year, it's going to be a product that's going to be in high demand.
Okay.
Especially again with this UL listing, there's not that many companies that are UL listed, and so that's what's going to make it difficult to be able to acquire some of these devices.
So that's the optimal.
So that would be part of the optimal. Yes, definitely. What are your long-term solutions? There's short-term solutions and there's long-term solutions. So certainly, we definitely recommend anything that has to do with your central air conditioning system. That's really where you should do the air quality and the air purification.
So then the bipolar ionization is recommended for big rooms like this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because at that point, you really need to have the central air conditioning system. I'll use that term. At the air handler, that's where you want.
And for classrooms?
So for classrooms, it depends. It really just depends. You can put them in the classroom if you wanted to. I mean, at the end of the day, is what you're trying to achieve. I know you all talked about
The air purifiers.
air purifiers.
The HIPAA.
Classrooms, right? And so certainly that is also something that you can do. Going back to your air purifiers typically have HEPA filters.
Yes.
And, so I'm going to go back to one more slide. So we talk about this air quality in the standard classrooms, we talk about 375 CFM. You put that in a classroom, 700 square feet, 9-foot high ceiling, you're looking at about 3 air changes per hour. So what that means is that in 1 hour, you actually replace the whole air with fresh air, in 3 times in 1 hour. And doesn't seem like a whole lot. Typical laboratory, when we do laboratories, you're talking about 12 air changes per hour. So that's, certainly we don't want a laboratory, right? But when you look at a purification system, let's say like if you were going to buy one and put it in a classroom, certainly that's something to consider as well. What are the rates at which that air is moving to be able to determine that air change, that it has to go through the HEPA filter.
So for a classroom, the unit that we're talking about is, would you recommend that as a short-term solution while we're looking into the bipolar ionization?
Certainly, yeah, that is something you can definitely consider. When it comes to the bipolarization, like anything at your central air conditioning system, the state law says, hey, if you got anything over $8,000, value of $8,000, you need an engineer. So that involves us. that takes time. It takes time, to do an assessment, to go out, how many, where, all that, that can take some time. And then as Mr. DeVetta was talking about the process, unfortunately, as a public entity and the stewards of the taxpayers' money, there is a process that you have to follow. Unfortunately, that sometimes that process can take time. Compounded by the fact that engineers like us need to go look at it, need to assess it, need to make the recommendation, need to design it, need to put it out for bids, y'all need to approve it, it needs to get ordered, it needs to get built. And so that time frame sometimes it's easily, 6 months. And as much as you try to streamline it, it still takes time.
So how expensive is it to do this bipolar ionization, like for a cafeteria such as this?
So they're sized by the airflow. So for something like this, we look at the size of the unit, and let's say it's 5,000 CFM. Then we would size it, select the right one for that. Cost-wise, it's real difficult right now. We're actually trying to work through the cost. Is it $10,000? By no means, it's not that. It's definitely less than that. Is it $1,000? Probably somewhere, I would say somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000, at one unit. Because not only do you have to provide the device, you have to provide electrical for it, and you provide the infrastructure for it. And so little things like that, they start to compound.
That means also that you're gonna double in power?
Sorry?
Or is the power usage?
No, so the nice thing about bipolarization, it really doesn't use a lot of power. It's not a energy hogger.
Okay.
Oh, a lifetime.
So a lot of these units now, like any typical piece of equipment, you're looking at about maybe 10 years. If you take care of it, there is some general cleaning that will need to take place periodically. And when I say periodically, is a couple of years, kind of dust, the dust up of it, because it's in the airstream. So eventually you may get a little specks of dust, but certainly longevity is there for that piece of equipment.
I mean, you have to look at that because, if we're gonna buy these little ones and then, it's gonna come back and we're not, they're not gonna be good enough going, so we might as well make the expense of something that's gonna last 10 years. You know what I mean? So we have to look at those things too, so.
Ravila, I know that PSJA and McAllen, they invested $2 million in air purification systems. Was it anything like this?
So if I remember the McAllen ISD, if I may refer to them, theirs was basically bipolarization. Yes.
And they covered all the schools?
To cover all the schools, yes. Because all the schools, they have, air conditioning systems, so I think it makes sense to use that approach to do that. It ultimately, bipolarization will help purify the air. Ideally, though, is to bring in that fresh air.
Well, how much is
We talk about outdoor spaces, have the kids be outside. The closest we can get to that is to bring the outdoor into the instruction. And so definitely, bringing in that fresh air. Unfortunately, some systems, because of their age, can't handle it. And so that's the other side of this coin,
Yes.
which one do you do? Do you replace it, upgrade equipment to handle it? Or do you provide the bipolarization that can provide that purification of the air?
Well, because we're running our units since 4 a.m. and then again, several hours after the kids leave and the staff. So we're doing a lot of ventilation already.
Right.
But that's going to overwork some of our older units.
Certainly will, yeah.
Oh, it's just the cleaning of the air.
Yeah, the nice thing though is that if you're doing it early in the morning,
Uh-huh.
the sun is not out.
Okay, yeah.
So the condensing units are working in an environment that's cooler.
True.
So they're not as stressed. The hard part is when the kids leave at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the sun is the hottest.
Yes.
And so that's where we see a little bit more stress. But in the morning, it's not as bad. Definitely not as bad.
So are we looking here as to, might as well hit the nail on the head, And it's an assessment. Do we need to have an assessment? Do we need to, because if we're gonna stay here and talk about it all night and then
No.
the next meeting and we're just gonna continue, the price is just going to go higher. So if we're gonna do something, we need an assessment first as to what.
And as a matter of fact, on the next item with support services, that's where we're going to be asking you for feedback on the ESSER funds and how do we go about spending.
Yeah, because, I mean, here we got, I mean, this,
Yes,
how we know what we need,
have opportunities.
And again, the purpose of this, like, you know, Dr. Perez, you know, when they invited me is have this open discussion, you know, ask any questions that you may have. Again,
What do you think is,
I'm your engineer.
what do you think would cost the district? Would be the cost of the district?
I asked him that.
So that's a very loaded question, considering that, you know, we really haven't done, I can't say that I've been to every single campus to tell you, hey, you know, roughly it's gonna cost this much. And it would be unfair for me to even give you a number, yeah. Is it gonna be in the thousands? No. Is it gonna be in the millions? Definitely.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then the fact that we have many older units depending,
oh, yeah, those are gonna have to be replaced in order to carry the load.
which is
So,
taking care of the root.
Yeah, and so hey, when it comes to the ESSER funds, and they talk about air quality, it encompasses
Everything.
everything. So everything, I guess, is fair game, so to speak. And that's one thing for y'all to consider is how far you want to take it. Sub-districts are taking it as far as they can.
Well,
And some other districts are being conservative, you know, because it depends on the needs. You know, you get so much money, so much goes to education, some of it goes to your facilities.
yeah, but remember, we're talking about our kids and this is a long-term, you know, and all, everybody that works in our school district.
and we won't get another opportunity to get,
And we're not, I mean, unless another disaster comes and then we've got more money, but we might as well take care of it for the next 10 years and
absolutely.
I'm not gonna be around, so you know, we might as well, I don't know. Well, I ain't a spring chick anymore. So I know where I am.
It is going to be in your older schools.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, if they're older than 15 years, more than likely, it's going to be tough
Yes.
to meet that.
Oh, yeah, well, you're gonna have to.
It's gonna be a double investment in that.
It's,
It could, yeah.
in the long run, it's in.
And then, you know, we're working with another district, and so the question was, you know, what about our new schools? What about them? You know, what do we need to do? And so again, if these schools were designed properly, which I'm sure they were, you know, by competent engineers, you know, this, as far as the air quality should be there. And so the only additional measure would be, let's say, the bipolarization. That's like the icing on the cake that you would need to do. The concern is really the older schools.
Our older schools. Yeah. We have a lot of them. Our elementaries.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you all. Y'all have a good night. Do you all need for me to stick around for the discussion?
No, we're okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Avila.
Well, have a good night. I'm gonna go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is support services, discussion, American Rescue Plan, use of funds and plan requirements. And Ms. Garcia is going to lead us in that discussion. And she's going to be sharing the template that was provided by the Texas Education Agency and the use of funds. And Dr. Roberts, Ms. Risica will be taking notes as well. And of course, this board workshop is being recorded. So we'll be able to gain feedback from you. Oh my, thank you. Okay. So go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
So the Texas Education Agency does provide some tools that we can utilize, and this is one of their template for building the financial plan. And on there, they have some generic categories such as supporting teachers by building teacher capacity, adding instructional support staff, rigorous instructional materials, adopting high quality instructional materials, create more time for learning, summer learning, extended instructional time, high dosage tutoring, acceleration academies, and then empowering parents through family engagement, providing wraparound services, And then other priorities such as our facilities and infrastructure, virtual, hybrid, blended instruction, and connectivity. And if we go over here, it provides an even deeper dive and examples that we can look at if we want to elaborate on those. So for example, in the first one, strategies for learning acceleration is to build teacher capacity to implement key components of effective instruction and deliver interventions. FTEs, will additional teachers or staff be needed to maybe reduce class size, implement interventions, or provide training? What instructional materials are needed? Are we providing stipends to support the training, the coaching, or the additional time to collaborate? Technology, what technology is needed to implement this supplemental instruction? And then what impacts will improvements to the core instruction and targeted supports have on operation, transportation, child nutrition, and our facilities? For additional instructional support staff, what staff would we like to hire to provide interventions and support differentiation and scaffolding in core courses? Are we wanting to provide stipends, training, coaching, additional time for collaboration? For ensuring the students have access to high quality instructional materials, what materials will be needed that are used in every grade and content area? Are we needing stipends to support training? Again, coaching and additional time for collaboration. What technology will be used to fully utilize these instructional materials? Summer learning opportunities. Will we need to hire additional support staff for summer programming? Do we need to purchase additional instructional materials that's aligned to the core curriculum? Are we needing to budget for stipends, teachers and support staff, technology for the summer programs, transportation, food service, facilities, and then also extended instruction time as well, what staff is required, what materials, do we need to provide additional compensation in the form of stipends, technology, and then how does that impact the operations? High dosage tutoring, will we provide any personnel that is needed to administer the program? Who will provide the tutoring services? Will we need to purchase additional instructional materials for the tutors? Are we needing stipends for training, coaching, progress monitoring, technology, and also the impact on the operations such as transportation, food service, etc. And then for acceleration academies, who will provide instruction during acceleration academies? Will we need additional staff to administer the program? Will we need to purchase technology, instructional materials, stipends, and then how it impacts operations again? In engaging families, do we need staff to implement those new systems? Parent liaisons, staff for family center, home visits, coordinator, and as well stipends for work outside of school hours, training, progress monitoring, technology, and then the operational needs. In wraparound services, do we want to hire additional counselors, mental health professionals, or other student support personnel, for example, nurses? Will you purchase new materials for social emotional health curricula to support students' overall well-being? Stipends. Do we need stipends for these increased duties for teachers and support staff? Will we purchase technology for students' overall well-being? And then what other wraparound services do we have, such as the food, the meals, the transportation and facilities? For virtual and hybrid or blended instruction and increased connectivity, do we need, what additional teachers, administrators, and support staff will be needed to implement this virtual, hybrid, or blended learning? what high-quality instructional materials will be needed for this model, stipends for increased duties for teachers and support staff, additional technology to ensure that the instruction is high quality, and then increasing connectivity, ensuring that students are able to engage with the virtual materials at home, and then what impact will it have on our operation? And then for facilities improvements, what do we plan on making? Building renovations, ventilation systems, upgrades, control systems, HVAC replacements, things of that nature. So those are some examples.
So they've given us a menu, and then we need to put in the amount and the specifics. Okay. So,
Well, there has to be an assessment
absolutely, absolutely.
where the majority of the kids are.
Mhm.
Because, so that you can know how many teachers you're gonna really need. More teachers. Are we gonna make our class sizes smaller? No? And then, or does every teacher gets a mentor or a teacher aide or something to be in the classroom to help? But, if we're going to do, the tutoring, intensive tutoring, for sure, class sizes have to be smaller.
Absolutely.
We need an assessment first before you.
Yes. And that is the reason why they're also telling us that we can adopt high-quality instructional materials and assessments.
Yeah.
Because some students came to take the state assessments, but very few.
Yeah.
And then, during the summer, they don't come to summer school. There's some regression. So at the beginning of the school year, we must take some kind of a benchmark assessment to see where the kids are. And then after that, that's where, the regrouping and the instruction has to be differentiated. Yet, we can't wait to hire the personnel. Everybody's gonna wanna be hiring additional teachers, tutors, interventions. So as, in working with Ms. Risica, we can start advertising, provided that they know that employment will come at the beginning of the school year. And by then, we would have submitted our application, negotiated and all of that, yet we secure the staff. And that's a huge threat that we're hearing throughout our stakeholder meetings. Our children have fallen behind. We need, especially our seniors, our juniors, our little ones. We've got to provide those interventions as soon as.
Have a pool, you would put out the application so that they.
Absolutely.
Can have a pool and then they're needed to the.
Absolutely, and start training them. Right in the curriculum, because our teachers don't have time to be telling people, this is what I need you to do. It's based on the assessment, this is the information, and we train them. We purchase a curriculum and start teaching the kids based on the kids' needs. Because at the beginning of the year, we always provide assessments to see where the kids are at. So, yes, we need to start ASAP and getting our people ready. And then, we also have, from our substitute list, we have retired teachers, we have our team teachers, but we're gonna need more.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you mentioned it because I was about to bring that subject up.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I've heard is on the substitutes, a lot of them are certified teachers, they're just retired.
Absolutely.
And would we be able to consider increasing the substitute pay for certified teachers up? I think we're at 110. Or 100 or 110, I don't remember the daily rate.
How much are we?
We did increase it this year
25.
for in-person. We have two sets of rates. So for in-person, it's a little bit higher. I don't recall off the top of my head, but 110 was for virtual.
Okay,
I think it's 125.
In person was
25.
higher.
I think they're getting 125.
125?
Okay.
Okay. That's competitive because I think
Yeah.
Yes.
But it,
very competitive.
And, you know, and we've been doing the TESB studies
Yeah.
every year. So, they keep us up to market value.
And now would be the time to change it because
Right.
right now that's what we're working on, our compensation plan.
Absolutely.
and another thing you said about curriculum, we don't have to buy curriculum for everything.
Oh, no, not at all. We have a lot.
I mean, when you have an aide in the room, you know, you just make the small group and
Yes.
the teacher's working on, you know, and then,
Yes.
I mean, it depends on this.
Oh, it would,
Intensive, or
exactly.
if the child is not capable, you know, then and he needs a one-to-one,
Exactly.
and it would be a different.
And it would make a difference between if we're hiring team teachers that are certified teachers versus college students that are doing tutorials.
Yeah, tutorial.
For those, you know, we may have to hire a curriculum that's sequential and we train them. So it just depends on the background of the individuals that we're going to be hiring.
And your team teachers that are certified are paid hourly, they don't receive the sub rate.
The what? I'm sorry?
Team teachers that are certified are paid hourly, they don't receive the sub.
They don't, substitute.
And they can only work so many hours,
Well, if they're
retired?
Yes, it's like, it's about half of what you would work if you were a normal teacher.
I think it's a 2 weeks,
Uh-huh.
2.5 weeks, what you can work.
Depends on the number of work days in the month.
Yeah.
They work past that. Otherwise, they lose.
That's how you can work.
Retirement benefits.
But with this pandemic, you know, there's educators that have stayed home and, you know, they may need to work now. So, and then, you know, we may have degreed people that all we got to do is train them and give them a curriculum and they will be able to work with students depending on their degrees and their backgrounds. So, that's why we do need to start early in advertising. But we're, you know, those are the categories that TEA and the federal government told us we can spend the funding on. So that's why we want to hear from you.
I would like to see us bringing in some social workers. I think they would be effective and it would help all our schools if we had social workers in all of our.
And it would align with addressing the mental health.
Okay. And we can look at that because, and Ms. Risica can check for us with DEA because that may fit in terms of the wraparound services.
The only word of caution in hiring staff is that since it is a 3-year grant, once the funds are
Absorb the
expended, we either have
That's
to
it.
let go of the staff or find another position for them within the district.
So when we advertise, we have to be very explicit in stating in the vacancies that it's, you know, the funding's coming from funds and, you know, how many years and so forth.
But do we really have to give a contract or we can?
No, we don't give contracts for, well, the only ones that get contracts,
Yeah,
teachers.
they can, you know,
Yeah.
stop them instead
It
of
would be an employment agreement for the school year.
Yes.
for the school year, yeah.
So the teachers would have a contract?
No,
Teachers,
the teachers have to have a contract.
a chapter 21 contract.
Yes. However, you know, they, when you advertise, if it's a grant fund position and the program ends, then even if they're on a term, you can't keep them because the program ended.
Right.
Okay? So if a program ends, then their contract ends.
So like those ones that are not fully certified, they'd
Those,
be eligible to apply now?
they would be eligible to apply as tutors,
Like your college kids that are
a college.
out, they can tutor.
Uh-huh.
They're awesome right now because of a one-to-one or two, three group little,
No,
you know.
in past years, when we used to get the accelerated reading and mathematics instructional funds, that's what most school districts used to do. We would hire tutors, we would buy a curriculum, and we would train them to use a curriculum, and they work with small groups. And many of those individuals that had degrees decided to go into the teaching profession. So, so a pay structure is then developed depending if they have 48 hours of college, if they have a bachelor's, and so forth. So,
General fund.
Currently a pay structure for that, and it's your certified teachers.
Okay.
Your,
General fund.
the ones that have a degree, not certified, I think it's 15 an hour. Your certified teachers are 20.
Okay.
And then like your students who would be like attending college,
Okay.
it's 12 an hour.
Okay. So it's already,
That's what we pay team teachers, so I think
Okay.
we probably fall under the same thing.
absolutely. Yes. Okay, other ideas?
On Acceleration Academies, that's what we're doing already, right? With,
With the summer school,
and the closing the gaps for the agreement.
apps,
That's it.
with Ingenuity and so
I
forth.
was just looking at it right now. Would we be able to bring back what we used to have, like in the 90s, the host program, Help One Student to Succeed? I know that was probably under a different,
It no longer exists. And Ms. Risica, you probably know more information. The owners decided, they retired, and that program no longer exists.
I just say that, but I'm just seeing an alternative program where people that are retired that can give back.
Oh, as a matter of fact, we can come up with our mentor program, definitely. Yes.
That's to close the gap even more.
Oh, absolutely. We can come up with our own mentor program, and, yes.
Okay.
And then again, train these individuals, we get a lot of winter Texans, okay?
Yeah.
There's also retired individuals that, want to come in for an hour or two and just do something. So, it can be similar to our parental involvement program where it's volunteer hours, and then we do the background checks, all of that. And then we get our coordinators to train them depending on their what they feel more comfortable with, reading, math, sometimes even just listening to a child read or to children read is, yes, definitely.
And I'm sure we'll come up with more ideas
Yes, and
on the way.
exactly. So text us, email us, the facilities and the infrastructure, we know that's very much needed. But like you all mentioned, we do need to do an assessment because we need to take into account the age of the HVAC.
I know that a lot of them are old already.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
They're expensive.
exactly. And I don't know that in our lifetime, we're going to get another opportunity to have this kind of money.
I doubt it. We need,
And the virtual,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
We should replace what we have on our HVACs to the newer models if we have this money, so that way we don't have this problem in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so we need to look into an assessment. Okay?
Yeah.
So you're taking notes?
If we have the money, we need to fix everything that needs to be fixed and
Absolutely, as much as we possibly can.
have it as much as we can, but on the virtual hybrid blend instruction, I mean, we just need to, I think, we just need to recommend or propose or whatever it is, we need to go back to in-person instruction.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs,
Absolutely, absolutely.
every employee, we're just gonna have to,
Absolutely.
The
say
teachers.
that, we need to go back.
It's the students that we need to.
Exactly.
Because the
And,
students aren't gonna go back, and what about if the faculty doesn't wanna go back?
and as the legislature works through that, but, and what we're being seen, more kids are wanting to come. And so as we continue to have the summer programs with extracurricular, more kids are going to start feeling more comfortable. So that's what we're aiming for.
I think, the parents, once they see how safe, secure, and,
Yes.
that their kids will be okay if they come in because of this pandemic, I think they see what we're using these monies for.
Huh?
I think they will send them back, but we have to understand that parents still live in fear of getting this virus. And that's why we don't have 100%. And we have to respect that. But I think it'll change this coming year.
Absolutely.
I see it changing.
Now, another thing that we're seeing a trend is that some kids that are not coming in person right now are going to come to summer school
Yes.
for our 3-week summer school. So that's, good news too.
Everything is good. If you saw this weekend, the world was out. This Memorial Day, the world was out. A lot of the kids that did not want to go to school, they were out at the beach, where there were masses of people at the movies.
Oh, yes.
At eating places.
Everyone.
So the fear is always going to be there, of getting it, even as that we have the vaccine. But we just have to push to get back, one day we have to go back to normal.
Absolutely. And do everything in our power to get all of our.
There will be your exceptions to the rule, the sick, have them. There's a lot of exceptions. And that is highly respected because, that's a child, that's a parent, that's a teacher, whatever it is, it hurts somebody that close to them, it's family. And family comes first, so we need to address that. But, we really need to, to me, it's like we need to go back 100%.
Then we will triangulate all of the data from all of the stakeholder feedback, including your feedback, and, send us more information.
And Dr. Pettis, if I,
Yes.
did just receive information from the United States Department of Ed. They're just released a new requirement for any purchases for HVAC or facilities. They're now requiring prior written approval. So I do have a session, Corey Green session tomorrow that, because they just released that information. So I think what I'm imagining is that there's a lot more interest in the HVAC.
Yes.
Because it is a lot of money. And so now they're putting more roadblocks up to make that a little bit more difficult, but it is going to require that prior approval before we can do something like that. So we just have to be prepared.
Okay.
But I will have more information after that session tomorrow.
And hopefully we'll be able to share that next week.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But in the long run, the longer we wait, like he said, there's going to be a shortage at one time. And we're not going to be able to get
Yes,
seen.
exactly.
The assessment to be done,
The only thing is that we have to wait to submit the application, and that will be July 27th.
Right.
By July 27th, I would like to submit prior to.
Prior to,
7th.
okay.
Deadline.
However, we cannot purchase anything with HVAC until they give us permission.
Yes, I'll have more information tomorrow, but I'm assuming that is going to be part of the application process.
Okay, good.
If we are allocating money in our spending plan to
Yes.
HVAC or facilities, that'll be part of it.
Okay.
We can be ready.
So that's why we need to start doing the
We
assessment.
can
Be ready.
Ready to.
Yeah, we need to be ready.
As soon as have the prices and everything.
Next.
Okay, and then,
Yes.
yeah, you can move.
Yes, we gotta be ready.
We got to be ready for it.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
so we'll need to follow procurement process for the assessment. Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Ms. Garcia, next
Thank
item?
you. Item B, first reading of changes to board policy DGEA local employee complaints and grievances. And at the recommendation of legal counsel, we are proposing to modify board policy DGEA local to address two areas. That if a grievance is submitted for level 3, that if at level 2 everything was granted, that the employee's level 3 written complaint and the administrator's response with the supporting documentation that,
Other school districts,
if,
we can't.
if at the level 3, they received all the requests, the relief that they requested at level 2, the employee is not entitled to oral argument because everything was granted, so it's just submitted in writing. Right now, the way the policy states is, even though they received all of the relief at the level 2, everything was granted, they can still come and present to the board and so forth, but there's really no action because everything was already granted. So legal counsel is modifying that so that it's just a written, they can appeal to level 3, but in a written format. And then also, he made some changes in terms of what's considered part of the record. The board policies, the board minutes, the agenda, and the recordings would be part of the record that could be considered by the board.
So you're saying that if it gets to level 3, they cannot come in?
If it was granted at level 2, let's say they were requesting a particular relief and 100% of that relief was granted, they can appeal to level 3. However, it's an appeal in writing versus having to bring the attorney or do their presentation to the board because everything was granted. But if something wasn't granted in their level 2, then yes, they can present their oral argument.
And already, if you will recall, one of the last grievances, it was, attorneys are already doing it because it was already granted. They just want the board to know what happened.
Right.
So they usually just submit it in writing anyway. It's already happening. It's just not in board policy.
Is this being done by everybody or?
It's a recommendation from our legal counsel. As far as if other districts are doing it, I don't know.
Yes, the majority of the districts are already doing it because most of the attorneys that represent are already doing it because they don't want to come in because there's nothing for the board to grant because it was already granted. The reason that they want to send it in writing is because they just want the board to find out. Because we really can't give you that type of information, or they can't talk to you during a level 1 or a level 2. So it's just an information piece that they submit.
And then the next item is consideration and approval of resolution of the board regarding SR 3 policies, local, state, and federal revenue sources. And Mr. Birdie has been working with TASB on this and legal counsel. TASB is recommending that as part of the guidance from TA that the district should develop a policy to address how the district will provide the required public knowledge. There is a requirement in this particular grant and as well as others. And for consistency purposes that they placed it in policy. And in addition, they provided a resolution to address the new wording that's added to policy local, which includes immediate adoption of the change upon the approval of the resolution by the Board of Trustees. And then the policy is attached, and basically the two things that are addressed is that the district shall provide public notice of federal grant by publishing information on the district's website. And of course, the district is already complying with that out of Ms. Rissico's office. She does post every time that she applies, and she opens it up for comment to the public in that manner. And then it says the district shall make available opportunities for public input as required by law or the granting agency. And then the approval of the required grant and award plans shall be by the superintendent. And again, this is consistent with current practice. So we're just adding that to policy. And last item is personnel recommendations. We would like to bring forward the information security analyst for recommendation and approval selection. And as well, we would like permission to add the coordinator for language arts for next week if we're able to complete the process. And those are all the items that I have for support. Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Finance.
Thank you, ma'am. First item on the finance committee is a public hearing. Is an item A, discuss the 2021-22 budget and proposed tax rate on June 23rd, 2021 at 6:15 p.m. This is an annual formality. Every year, the board has to adopt a budget before June 30th. We are required by statute to advertise a notice, publish a notice in the newspaper, budget and proposed tax rate notice. And so that means the public notice will be scheduled for June 23rd. That would be on Wednesday at 6:15. Item number 2 is presentation to the board. That item was taken care of earlier in the meeting. Item 3, discussion. Item A, set date for public meeting to discuss the 2021-2022 budget and proposed tax rate and approval of the proposed tax rate 2021. As I just shared with you, we're going to be having a meeting on June 23rd. We're going to be working with the Hidalgo County Tax Office the next couple of, this week and next week, so that we can advertise on the newspaper on June 11th, which will be next Friday. And that publishing in the newspaper is for the public notice meetings for June 23rd. We are required to follow a certain format. We have to follow guidelines from the Texas Comptrollers. We're publishing the tax rate and the proposed budget. One of the key components of budget is the tax rate, and that will not be available until later in the year, in August. Once we complete a survey from TEA will analyze the data, and then they will provide us a tax rate that the district needs to approve. For public notice purposes, we will be utilizing the current tax rate because that is a known factor. For notice purposes, we can adopt a tax rate that is lower than what we publish, but we cannot do the opposite. We cannot adopt a tax rate that would be higher than what was put in the notice. So we're being conservative and we will be using that. And the tax rate will be adopted sometime in September when we have a regular report meeting. Its administration will be bringing a recommendation of the approval to set the date for the public meeting to discuss the 2021-2022 budget and the proposed tax rate on June 23rd. Item B is approval of bids, proposals, and purchases of $50,000 and over. I do have 33 items. Will the board like for me to go item by item? No, I do want to bring to your attention that we have one for the audit services for the financial audit, and that is item 20. This is just a formality that the board is we're bringing a renewal for that agenda item. Item C is the budget amendments. I am bringing a budget amendment just to realign some of the expenditure accounts. For summer school and some curriculum writing, there is no impact to fund balance. We're just moving monies from one account to another. And so that leaves the total general fund expenditures budget at $182,694,134. Item B is donations. The district received some donations for the time period since we last reported, and so the donations were $2,060, and there were several donations in cash, $1,170, and non-cash $90 donation. These donations went to our campuses, and administration does recommend that the board approve the donations as presented. Moving on to the item number 4, informational items, the financial report for the month of April. The total revenues for the month were $132,407,030, and the actual expenditures were $116,777,036. We have excess revenues over expenditures by $15.8 million. We also have our debt service financial report with revenues of $8.8 million and expenditures of $9.8 million. There's an excess deficiency of $1,050,000. However, we do have sufficient fund balance to cover that. The next item is the self-funded health insurance plan. The revenues for the month of April were $11,027,063.73, and expenditures were $12,395,194.38. We do have excess expenses over revenues of 1.3 million, and our net position as of April is negative 411,886.65. We did see a decline in our medical claims and pharmacy, and we're continuing to monitor the activity on the fund. We also receive additional monies from the stop loss for those high payments that we've been sharing with you the last couple of months. Next item is the tax levy adjustments for the month of April. Factual adjustments that are a result of corrections, rollbacks, and homesteads resulted in a net decrease of $37,098.50. Our collections for the month were $640,314.12, and we pay a monthly fee of $6,271 to Idaho County Tax Office. I do want to let you know that our collections percentage of 92.80 is almost two points higher than prior year at the same time. Last April of 2020, we had 90.92, and this year we have 92.80, so we're doing great on collections. Next item is the 2021-2022 budget update, and I'll be brief on that item. I did have that PowerPoint to all of you. Thank you for everybody. I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are, and I will be doing a more extensive presentation when we have a public hearing. So the fifth, if you flip to page 1, yes, or the one right after the cover, for ADA for the fifth reporting period is $13,799. We're very close to budget. We had anticipated $13,825, so we're very close to that. We're also keeping tabs on the whole harness options that have been provided by the state. And what they do is they replace any ADA that is low, that is below what they have projected for us. And what TEF has on their system is 13,822 ADA for the district, which is very close to what our internal projection report. So when we went through the calculations on the home harness, TEAs tell the districts that they will be the better of funding whatever produces the highest funding for the school districts. Based on the current information we have, we may be gaining 783,966 over what TEA is projecting on their end. Some of the assumptions that we are considering in the budget is that the state revenue is based on 13,022 average daily attendance. We're keeping a very conservative number for revenue projections. The tax rate, we're estimating that for maintenance and operations is going to be 0.9894 for $100 valuation. However, that is to be confirmed or determined by TEA. On the debt service side, we're keeping it at 0.1713, and that is to support all the payments that we have on the bonds. Property values have increased anywhere between 2% and 4%, and in April, the Idaho County Appraisal District provided an estimate that reflects 6.10% increase. We will not get a certified tax roll from Idaho County until sometime around July 25th of this year. The other item that was taken into consideration is interest revenue. We were able to enjoy high amounts or high interest revenue based on the amounts we put out on our investments, and we have seen interest rates to go or even exceed 2%. If you look at page 6 of the presentation, I'm giving you historical 10-year historical tax rate information. And in 2019, we were very close to 2.5%. We cannot see anything like that ever since we started the 2008 recession. And unfortunately, with the situation with the pandemic and all the economic turmoil,
The political war.
we started seeing interest rates very low, close to zero. And so that reflects on the budget. We were able to bring in approximately 1.3 million in the last 2 fiscal years, and for this year, we're already not even 150,000. And for next year, we're also estimating the 150,000.
And we had diversified and joined.
Yes.
That's really a hit.
Yes, we have done different things and despite the efforts, we can't control the market. And so that reflects in there. Two critical components for funding, school finance, funding element is the state property values, and that will not be available until January of 2022. And the other one is the tax rate that we expect TEA to let us know what that number is gonna be sometime in August. On the expenditure side, the district has put together an employee benefits package, and more details on that will be from our superintendent next week at the regular work meeting. However, preliminary salary increases are estimated at about 2.9%. I did share with you that CRS rates are also increasing from 7.7 to 8%, so that it is included in our budget, in our annual budget or on the proposed budget that we will be presenting. The unemployment compensation had been projected to increase given the unemployment rate we experienced last year and this year. However, recently, a couple of weeks ago, we were notified that we may see a decline of up to 20% on our renewal that becomes effective September 1, because some of the unemployment rates have stabilized with different things that the country has done. And so we may be bringing to your consideration an item later in the summer to reflect that 20% reduction. The other thing that is a big item is the self-funded group health and water contribution. We have increased that by 10%. We've been working with a consultant. We have been making presentations, and based on what we were presenting, the fund was not funded adequately. This 10% is on the employer side only. There's no increase. The district is not passing any increases to the employees. So on the employee side, they will be paying the same amount.
How are the claims now? Post, I say post because we're trying to get back to some sort of normalcy. Have we stabilized as far as COVID?
In April, we did see a decline, Mr. Bennett, a significant decline. So, I would ask Mr. Scott to provide us an update if you would like.
For the whole board, yeah.
Yes, I meant to say, the board, yes.
The only thing is that we do have several high claim cases.
Yeah, big cancer patients, and that's to be expected because that's general trend.
Exactly.
But we can
So-
do one, here before the end of the fiscal year.
Definitely.
I don't know that we may be ready for June 8th, but for sure June 23rd, that's acceptable.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, I'll work with that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Them every other month.
Okay. And so the putting some numbers on the unemployment compensation for the pandemic, for annual renewal, our premium was 79,628. After the pandemic, it increased to 152,017, and then we're gonna expect that to go down. At least we won't see an increase on that aspect. If you look at page 10, once we put all of those elements into our revenue projections, we're looking at having 180,820,148 revenues for 2022. And on the debt service side, we're looking at $8,457,048, and that will come from property taxes. And also from the state wants about a little bit over 50% of our bond payments, and so that's where the money comes from. I do want to let you know that on the federal revenue, we're including some monies, about $6 million from the ESSER. That amount is already known, and we know that it will have expenditures, so we can include that as part of the budget to already account for that item in here in the budget.
For indirect costs.
As indirect costs, yeah, as expenditures take place in the fund, we can save administrative costs and put that in general fund. And we do that with all the funds. On the expenditure side, page 11, we have 140,749,903. That's to support the different initiatives that the superintendent will be sharing with you next week. The contract services, we have 15,599,000. Supplies, 15,645,791. Other operating costs, $6,874,080. Debt, $1,036,320, and capital outlay, $914,439. On the debt service, all of the money has to be used for debt, and so that's where it's $8,457,000. Just to give you an overview on the expenditure budget, most 78% of our budget is tied up in payroll, and that's expected. That's where the account for all the expenditures. The deferred tax rate, we are currently at 1.0280, and we will update that once we know what that tax rate for the district will be. On the debt service side, what was our fund balance at the beginning of this fiscal year? We have outstanding principal, $95,979,000, and in interest, $32,156,000. We do have an obligation of bonds for the next fiscal year of $8.4 million. And our last payment on these bonds is scheduled for June 30th, 2038, and that amount will be $3 in addition, the next item, page 15, has to do with property value discussion with the board. That is a requirement from TEA, and I need to have this discussion so that whenever we submit our audit, it's part of the audit as well. And if we don't comply, it can be penalized on our rating. And so, you may not remember, it's been a long time, but I did have this same discussion last year. Prior to House 3 of the 86th legislative session, prior year property values were used in the funding formulas to calculate state revenues, causing a one-year funding lag. For example, if the local revenues decreased in the year the property value declined, the state did not recognize that decline until the subsequent year. If the local revenue increased in the year the property value increased, the state did not recognize that increase until the subsequent year. So state funding values lag local values by about 1 year. And there's been a lot of changes in the past legislative sessions, but there were a lot of complaints, especially for those districts that were increasing property values. They wanted to see that funding already in that same budget year so that they could get that assistance to help them balance the budget. In Mission's case, that was not the case, but there's advantages and disadvantages, just like anything else. Then if you go to next page, page 15, I just give you a visual. You will see that revenue varies year by year depending on the rate of property of value growth. So the first row, the property values used for local collections, those are amounts provided to us by the tax office. And then the different corresponding tax rates and the different level of local collection. Those local property value increases and some of the tax rates are reduced, some of the local collections may decrease as well. If you look at the property value state for state collections as they increase, the state values tend to decrease. They have an inverse relationship between local and state. So if local increases, state funding will decrease. So starting with fiscal year 1920, we have to use the current year value, therefore we have to estimate this amount until it is released until next January. It's a timing, unfortunately, but we just rely on our best judgment and historical information to project the most conservative estimate. So if you flip to page 17, what we have coming up, the budget and the tax rate timeline. On June 11th, we will hold a public notice in the progress terms. The public hearing is scheduled for June 23rd, 2021 at 6:15, and then we will have a budget adoption right after we do a special board meeting, and then the tax rate adoption, we are expecting that to take place sometime in September. And then the last slide that I had in what everybody has been hearing about is the ESSER 3. Just to let you know that funding will be available and we're working on our way to have access to those funds. And so, ESSER 2, there hasn't been any updates on that. What we heard, there had been some discussion at the legislative session that the commissioner was gonna require that 40% of the interest monies be set aside to start 23, 24, and 24, 25, 25th fiscal year. Based on information we received, that is no longer the case, so there is no requirement for setting aside 40% of the ESSER. We're keeping tabs on ESSER 2, we're expecting about another 30 million on that money, and of course, that will be, the amount will be known until Tuesday, release that information. And this is all I have for the budget update. I will prepare it, for public notice, and it will give you more details, and will be required to be approved by the board.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Madam President, we read all the items in discussion, items 2, item 3, A and B, inclusive of all the items, for purchases, budget amendment 2021 and the donations. Yes, okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank
That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Any further business to come before the court? Anyone?
Ms. Roberts, Dr. Perez, may I present,
Definitely.
thank you.
Yes, yes, it's a nice one. Go ahead.
Ya me dio la tapa. Jessica. Nada.
Defrost,
Cool. Yes, we need to defrost.
zero cold.